I was born and raised in Miami, Arizona. I was born in 1932, September 27. My dad and my mom came from San Sebastian, Jalisco, Mexico. And they came here in, I think, around the 1920s, somewhere in that neighborhood, between 1918 and 1922. Yeah, they came over here because there was no work over there and there was nothing that they could really do, and there was no money. So, and to tell you the truth, I don't really remember much of the history about my family.
Yeah.
But I did know that they came here between 1918 and 1922. No, they never mentioned anything about coming over here, or how they came over here, or anything. I just do know that my dad came here and he started working at the copper mines.
Yeah.
I had four brothers, and there was four brothers and four sisters.
Four brothers and four sisters.
There was 8 of us in the family. Let's see, just one of them. Well, no, 2 of them. My oldest brother, Manuel, worked at the smelter there for years and years, and then my other brother was next to me, Fernando. He worked for the mines, and he worked there the rest of his life. Well, he had to be working for at least 30, 40 years because he died when he was around, I think, around 59, 60 years old. He died from all the dust and stuff that were working underground in the mines. He had that, what they call silicosis, working underground, and all the dust that got into his lungs. They were mining copper. I was around 11, I think I was around 11 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood. Oh, actually, I was a freshman in high school. Maybe it was, yeah, it was about 13 or 14, somewhere in there.
13 or 14 years old.
Well, as far as I was concerned, we never did get any benefits from the mine. Never received 1 cent from them. And at that time, my older brothers were all gone. One of them, 2 of them were in California. The only one that was there was my one of my youngest brother, and he was working at the mines at the time. Not younger than me. It was the next to me.
Okay.
I was the youngest of the boys. Yeah, a little older than I was.
Yeah.
And he worked for Copper Cities.
Yeah.
Financially, it was very hard because I was the only one that was at home besides my 2 younger sisters.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how did
Actually, three younger sisters. We had Social Security. That's the only thing that we had as far as financially. For the 3 youngest, which was 4 of us, my 3 younger sisters and myself. No, I can't even remember how much it was. I know that I started working when I was 9 years old at a grocery store, and whatever I made there, I'd give it to my mom. And well, when I first started, it was around $2.50 a week, which I brought quite a few loaves of bread. I was just I'd clean those sidewalks, wash windows, and carry groceries out. The Lazoviches, John Lazovich, they were I call them bohunks, but they were Slav people that came from Yugoslavia, and they started a store there, and they had that store there for years and years, and they catered to a lot of the Mexican people there. In fact, they gave credit to them, and every payday they'd come in and pay the bill. I don't know, but did know that there was a lot of them that traded there, and that's how we survived. Is that we'd buy groceries on credit, and then on payday we'd go in and pay it. Well, in those days nobody had any money, and the pay that they got at the mines was maybe was enough to pay maybe the utilities and some of the other stuff that we had there. That was the reason for that.
Yeah.
I just went down there, and I just lived down the street from where the grocery store was, and I'd go down there and look around, and finally the guy said, "Do you want a job?" I said, "Yeah." And that's how I started working there. Yes. Because when my dad got sick, he used to come down and help me down there at the store. Also.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes. until he really got sick, where he ended up in bed, and that was the end of it. Yeah, well, he lived about after he quit the mines, he lived about a couple of years, and then about I think he lived for about a year before he died. But he laid in bed for almost a whole year. No, we didn't have any help from anybody. In those days, you didn't have, the only help we had was what they call welfare. And I think about every month or so they'd bring a truck in and they would give you goods like canned meat and peanut butter and stuff like that with cheese lined up in there, and we'd get, me and my dad would go down there with our little red wagon, and they didn't got no assistance at all.
Was that
And
common?
that time they didn't even have health insurance.
Yeah.
So it was common then that I don't think it maybe we were lucky if maybe 1 or 2% of the Mexican people had health insurance. I think the differential was around between $4 and $5 difference. I think at that time, if I'm not mistaken, he was getting around maybe $2.50, $3 an hour, while the other people were getting $7 or somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, because they were laborers, and that's the jobs that's what they paid as a labor, and most of the laborers were all Hispanic, and they were in the same boat as we were.
Oh, they were.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I don't know what their pay was because I never did.
Do you have any
You know what? I really couldn't tell you. I lived in the canyon where I think most of the Slavic people lived up there. I think we were the only Hispanic people living in that canyon. And we lived there for years and years, that finally one of them came up to me and said, you know what? We're going to change your name. I said, you are? Yeah, what are you going to change it to? We're going to start calling you Trujillovich. That was my last name, Trujillo. So ever since then, anytime I run into a Slav people, they always call me Trujillovich.
and
And it stuck to it.
yeah, and this because you were
In
living.
fact, I think they meet every year. I think they meet every year. They have a museum now. They call it the Bullion Plaza Museum, and the Slavic people have a room there what they set up, and they have a get together. And every year I get a card from them, and it says on there Adolf Trujillovich. I haven't gone to it yet, but the next one that they have, I'm going to go to it.
Now, when you say you were in the same boat, explain that.
Well, they were discriminated just like we were.
In what way?
Uh, you can only do certain things. Theaters, we could only go to the theater down the upstairs, and there were some restaurants that didn't allow us to go in. And of course, in those days, we couldn't afford to go to a restaurant anyway to start with. You know, we didn't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, they had a YMCA there. We couldn't buy a membership at the YMCA. I don't know whether maybe Andy could probably tell you more or less more on that than I could.
But YMCA.
Well, like the YMCA, it was a membership there where they had a gym, they had a swimming pool, they had pool tables and stuff that they had there. Well, we couldn't buy membership or go in there because they wouldn't let any Hispanic people in there. In fact, it went like that for years till they finally set up a little one to the side. The YMCA was on one side, and then they had a commercial store there, and then they had a little building there that they finally opened up, and that was where the Hispanics would go. But it was just I don't think it was any made room by 8 by 10 or something like that. I think that's what it was. Yeah, it was about 8 by 10.
So just a little 8 by 10 room.
And they had a pool table, and that's about it. We'd hang out and play around in there. Yeah, they would let us go and swim at the Y, but that was be on a Sunday afternoon, because that's when they drained the water out and brought in some more clean water.
So they would let you swim on the day that they were draining.
On that day they were draining the water out.
Now, did a lot of the kids from the Mexican?
I didn't go.
You didn't go.
In fact, I never did learn how to swim, and to this day I still don't know how to swim. I'm 84 years old and I still don't know how to swim.
Talk about that.
The movie theaters, they have an upstairs and a downstairs. The downstairs they had the cushioned chairs, and the upstairs they had the wooden stairs. And the upstairs was the only place that we could go. We could go in the theater, but we had to go, sit upstairs.
How much did a movie cost in those days?
It was around what, a nickel, 10 cents, somewhere's in the neighborhood. I can't even remember. Oh, I can remember Tarzan, and but that's the only thing I can remember. When they used to bring a Tarzan movie, boy, that was a big treat for me. Yeah, they had the inspiration was for the white people that went, and the Bullion Plaza was for the Hispanics and the Apache Indians would go. I think they some of them went up to inspiration. I don't think we had any in Bullion Plaza that I can remember. It didn't bother me at all. It's after a while we got used to it, and we used to. In fact, we used to walk to school because it wasn't very far from where I lived. In fact, we used to go home at noon for lunch.
Now tell me about that. Tell me about that.
We used to get up at noon, and I'd run home to eat lunch, and then run back to school for the afternoon.
How far was it to your house?
Oh, I don't think it was maybe not even half a mile, probably. No, there's some of them that took their lunch in Bullion. I don't know about Inspiration, but I know at Bullion there's some that took their lunch because they had a longer distance than I had. Because we had about, I think, but from 30 to 45 minutes. And my mom always had something to cook there, so.
Yeah.
At that time, I can't remember whether we had any or not. Because most of my teachers were white people. No, they wouldn't let you. If they caught you talking Spanish, you'd get a SWAT.
A SWAT.
Yeah, a paddle.
Yeah, yeah. So it was against the rules.
Against the rules to speak Spanish
at the school, like
at
even
the
on
school.
the ground.
Right.
You could.
Well, we had a basketball court out, but it was dirt. It was a dirt court, but we played on it, and we had teams. We play Inspiration, we played Lower Miami, and some of the schools in Globe. We'd play at their school, where they had the courts. They were in the backside of the building. Yeah, no. When we were there, we had the baskets.
You had baskets there. Okay.
But there was a time, I think, when they did. They used trash cans to shoot at. I learned some of it, but when I got up to high school, I ended up making the JV team, or the freshman sophomore, and I think I was about the 25th man on the team.
Oh.
But and I was lucky if I played maybe 1 minute or 40 seconds or 50 seconds, whatever. But I got to play.
And before you start, so let me ask you,
I started in Bullion Plaza, and then from then I actually learned all on myself.
How's that? Taught yourself?
Well, I used to go up to that Inspiration School. They had a court on the outside. They had cement and thing, and I used to go up there and shoot and play around by myself. I did that during the summer.
Did you have a ball? Did you own?
Yeah, I had a ball.
And is this a ball that you bought on your own?
Yes.
You said you worked at
I worked all through school, and I started working when I was 9 in grammar school. Went down there, and the guy that owned it was John Lazovich, and he asked me one day if I wanted to work. I said, yeah. And so he had me out there washing windows and cleaning the sidewalk and sweeping the sidewalk and carrying out groceries. Well, it's hard to tell because when I was in the JV, I remember that our coach was Cordes, Ray Cordes. And he would send the first team in to get the uniforms. Then he'd send the second team, then the third team, then the fourth team, and I was in the fifth team. By the time I got to the fifth team, what was left of the uniforms wouldn't fit me. I had a shirt that came down below my knees, and my pants would fall down. I couldn't hold it up, so I had to take them home. My mom had to sew them and to fit me. And so I played 2 years for the JV, and then my junior year I went out for varsity, and I just barely made the team. I think there was 3 of us. Cabista had 3 of us that that we were real close and didn't know who he was going to cut. So what he decided to do was he was going to keep all three of us, and we were going to alternate to play basketball. Two of us would dress out and one wouldn't, and uh, and that's how I ended up making the varsity. And and I'll never forget this, but our very first game was going to be in St. John's, and I lost a flip, so I wasn't going to make that trip. But it so happened that one of the starters, which was Lupe Acevedo, got an elbow in his eye, and it split it. And the doctor told me he couldn't play. So the coach said, "Well, you're going to take Acevedo's uniform." So I got to make the trip. We went all the way up to St. John's, and we were losing. This is the first half. We were losing, and right before the first half, everybody had gone in. I was the only one left that hadn't gone in yet. So he called me over, and I took my jacket off. I thought I was going to go in, and he said, "No, no." He said, "Go in the locker room, give Acevedo your uniform." So I had to go in the locker room, give him his uniform, and then I had to come out and keep score because that's what he was doing. You know, they always had somebody keeping score on the side.
And how did that make you feel having to do that?
Well, it made me feel kind of bad, but there's nothing else I could do. I know that if it happened now, you'd end up in court. But it taught me a lesson, and I went ahead and played the rest of the year, and it taught me a lesson that I guess I'm gonna have to work harder. I'm gonna have to do something to make the team, so I don't have to give anybody my uniform. So that after my junior year, I worked all summer long, 3 months, worked hard at it, and so when I went out for my senior year, uh, the very first game, he said, "You're going to start," and that's how I became a starter. Practices that I based and my shooting, and that was pretty quick.
That's,
And I had
let
a
me ask, hold on a second. Let me ask, are you picking up good enough?
I went up every day, twice a day, up to the courts there in Inspiration, and shut around in there and worked on my shooting and going up there. I had to walk up there, and they had some stairways. They must have had what, about 20, I think 20 steps up that to get to that school. I used to run up there, and that's how I used to get in shape. I used to run up the stairs to get to Inspiration. There was about 40, 50 steps. I used to run up there and run down, and that's how I got in shape. And then I used to run around a lot up there shooting baskets and trying to work on my weaknesses that I had. Summertime, it was hot, but I was still out there. I think the degrees there was around 95, 98, somewhere in that neighborhood. I tried out and got on there, but there was three of us that were real close that the coach said I might cut the wrong guy, and he decided to keep all three of us. I think one of them was me, and I think it was I think Labata was one of them, and Harold McNair. No, who was it? I can't remember who the third one was. Well, I would say I was not bad.
Not bad.
You know, to make the varsity, that's you had to be good to make the varsity, especially with Coach Cavisto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played 2 years as a freshman and a sophomore.
Okay. So you got to play.
Yeah, they would play the preliminary game, and then the varsity would play the second game.
Yeah.
On the varsity, my strength was my ability to jump. I could jump pretty high. I had a good leaping ability, and I was pretty quick. And then by the time I got to the senior year, I was pretty good at shooting.
You had worked on those skills.
Yes.
While you were doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In those days, we didn't have no such thing as camps, and like they have now, and they have club basketball, they have club baseball, they have I got all things now that kids can improve in because they had good coaches there to teach them. And those days we didn't. We had to do everything on our own. Yeah, my brother played basketball for Miami High School in 1936. He was a pretty good basketball player, but he's the only one that played sports.
Did
No, I didn't have my brothers around then. When I was in high school, they were all in California working.
oh,
Coach Cavisto, he was a great coach, and he was
let me,
tough.
let me start over so that I don't cut you off. The coach and your experience with him.
The coach at the time when I was in my junior senior year was Coach Cavisto, and he had two previous teams that he had coached there, and they had two winning teams, and and he was a good coach. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from him how to play defense. I learned a lot of him to keep in shape because he used to run us all the time. He believed in the fast break. He didn't believe in dribbling. He believed in passing, and 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 he had some pretty strict rules. He had a rule. One of the first rules he had was you couldn't have a girlfriend. The second rule was you better be home by 9 o'clock. Of course, we had a curfew in our town anyway to start with, but you had to be home by 9 o'clock. You couldn't be out because he'd call home and check on you, and that's how he kept the team in pretty good shape. Now that one I couldn't tell you. Of course, I didn't have a girlfriend, so I didn't have nothing to worry about.
And
That was during the season.
during the season.
He wanted to make sure there was no distraction with your playing. No, he was from the back east. But from what I understood, that he came through town here, and he happened to stop at a restaurant, and somebody said he was a coach basketball. He said, "Was they looking for a basketball coach here?" So he went and checked into it and found out that they needed a coach. So he applied for it and he got the coaching job. That's the way I understood it. That's what he said. He was just going through here.
Did he ever talk about it? Did he ever describe it to you later?
No, I never did know about it until later on. When I learned about it is when we had that play. His wife was Jane Ann, and from what I understood, that she really didn't like the small community life, but she went ahead and stayed here, and she treated us real nice, and but that's about all that I knew about her.
But you heard that she didn't like the town, and
That's what I had heard later on, that she wasn't too happy with the little town. Yeah, well, I don't think he got divorced until years later.
years later.
Yeah, years later, because he went back to East Moline, I think, and I was coaching there for many years. He ended up coaching his two kids. Well, as far as I know, he was a great coach, and he treated you just like he was your son. Well, he was the type of person that would treat you like uh, he was your own son. And I think the reason he did that was because most of us that played in that were Hispanics, and like me, I didn't have a father. Rudy Moreno didn't have a father. Lupe Acevedo didn't have a father, and I think Hector Jacob didn't have a father. So most of them didn't have fathers. So he treated us just like a son, and if we needed anything, he was always there to help.
I mean, your father passed away, of
He
course.
passed away, and the other was the same way.
Oh.
They passed away too.
Okay, from silicosis
Now,
also.
Lupe did have a father,
We did.
yeah, but he didn't have a mother. Yeah,
Immigrant
that's
background.
what. So I think he was familiar with all of that. What that he came from immigrant families that probably had a hard time, which knew that we were in the same situation as he was when he was a kid, and I think that's why he treated us like he did. He was a very strict disciplinary, very strict.
Give me an
When
example of
Well,
two
when we
examples of
were
what it was.
practicing, when he called us, you better be there right quick. and you better run there. And when he talked, he didn't want to hear any noise. Oh, I know at one time whenever he after a ball game we learned right quick that when we got through with the game we'd go right in the locker room and we wouldn't take our clothes off. We'd sit down because that's what he taught us to do because he wanted to talk to us before we even took a shower. And at one time, I think one of the players was taking his shoes off, and boy, he kicked that locker room, and man, we all jumped. And he says, "I told you not to take your tennis shoes off yet." And but he was very strict. Yes, very hard nosed.
Yeah.
And when he wants you on that court, you better be running. He didn't want to see you walking or loafing. Well, one of the things that he brought out that I learned a lot from was that he brought out on teaching us this fast break and teaching us to pass the ball. And when there was an open man, pass the ball to the open man. Don't dribble it. And that's one of the things that he taught us. And he taught us sportsmanship. When I was a junior, we were 26-1, and my senior, we were 27-0. Well, he kept us together. He made us play as a team. Made us that none of us were the big star. We were all 10 players out there, and we all stuck together. And he made a team out of us. Well, he taught us to be able to look for the open man. He taught us to look and see whether we should shoot or we shouldn't shoot. He taught us how to play defense and make sure that we moved our feet. That's one of the things that I really learned from him. And one of the things that I learned a lot from him was the pivot that I never did know before. Even my JV team, I didn't learn that. But you pivot foot that you when to move to left or right, you know, and he taught us how to block out on the boards, and I learned that because I was a forward, and it taught me a lot because when I went to college, I was glad I learned that. I learned a lot from him when I went to college. My rebounding, shooting, playing defense, stealing the ball, and going down on a fast break.
All around skills.
All around.
Yeah. Yeah. You ended up becoming captain of the team. Tell us about
No,
that.
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
Not high school.
Yeah.
No, most of the captain mostly was either Eli or Lupe.
What was it like?
It was really great because we started out right off the bat.
Well, do me a favor. Start out with our championship season was.
Or our championship season started out with winning the first game of the season, and then from there on we kept winning the second, the third, and fourth, and finally we decided, well, heck, we can go undefeated if we really work hard, and we did. We worked hard all throughout the years, and we had some close games, but we always pulled them out. Even when we went to the state tournament, we had two close games. In fact, when we in the semifinals we played Clifton, they were leading us up to about the third quarter. Then we finally got going and we finally won that game. And against Carver was the same way.
That was the championship.
That was championship game.
Yeah.
But that was really a great season for all of us, because I think what it really did for us is that here we were with 10 ball players out there, and 5 of us or 6 of us got scholarships, which none of us could afford to go to college anyway. And the coach really worked hard on it. He got somebody from NAU to take 5 of us on the scholarships. And then Lazovich ended up going to the U of A. Yeah, but he was down as a junior. He wasn't in the varsity then.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, he was in the varsity, but he was a junior then. No, I didn't. In fact, not only that, I didn't think I was going to be scoring any points at all
Why is that?
until about I think it was when we played Safford at home. That's the day that I broke the state record for scoring 45 points. Uh, that's when I said to myself, well, we got a team here that can really go places. And the funniest thing about it is I only held that scoring record for 1 week. Because the following week, Eli Lazarevich broke it, and he scored 51. He held it for 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks, Lupi Acevedo broke it, and he scored 56, I think it was. Uh, I didn't play much my junior year, but we had some good shooters. We had some. In fact, we had some in the second team that did a good job. They
Uh,
were the leading scorers
they
for
were
the
leading
team.
scorers, but were they big scorers in their junior year, or
Yes,
oh, they were?
they were.
But I'm
In fact, I think they were in the varsity their junior year, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I think Acevedo was brought up his freshman year, if I can remember. It's been so many years ago that I
hmm
can't even remember whether.
hmm
No, I didn't. I really didn't.
right in the
That's
second
when
year.
I said we could do it.
Yeah.
And then the following week, when Lazarus broke the record, I said, well, hell, we got some good scorers here.
hmm Did
And most
you?
of our scoring we did was in the fast break. That we had three in the team that broke the state scoring record in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's what I said to myself, that we could go a long ways this year. Yes, well, we were getting the reputation for running up the score. A lot of coaches were pretty mad because they said all we did was run the score up on some of these teams that they weren't very good. A lot of people from the communities knew that.
Knew that what? I'm sorry.
A lot of people in the community knew that we were a team that could win the state.
Okay.
Because at that time, I think the only team that won the state was in 1941.
People
We
were.
were the second team in 1951 that had won the state. Carver, well, first it was Scottsdale, I think it was, and then Clifton, and then Carver.
In Carver in the
Yeah.
finals.
It was a good experience because they were one of the toughest teams in the state. They were rated right up with the big schools, and they played a lot of the big schools during the season. No, they were in the same class we were in. Because at that time they were, I think enrollment was a deciding point as to what class you were in.
They were.
No, we didn't, because we never played them until the finals of the. The only good team that we really ever played was Nogales. We beat them during the season, and we had a tough game with them. In fact, Nogales was the one that beat us in our semifinals in our junior year at the state championship.
And what kind of
Yes,
a team
yeah,
they
we
were?
had heard about
What
them.
what did you heard? What had you
That
heard
they
about them?
had a real good team. No, they had the height too. They had the height, and they had a couple of good guards. Well, the coach was kind of preparing us for it. He knew a little bit about them, and
And what did he tell you about them?
that
What did
we,
he tell you
we
about them?
we had to be very alert. He said we had to really block them out of the boards, and and we had to stay right with them because we couldn't let them shoot. They had some good shooters in there too.
Were you intimidated at
No,
all?
I didn't feel that way.
You didn't feel what way? If you could talk
That
about that.
that, that by being intimidated.
I mean, what was that
It was a
experience?
great feeling because that's one of the things that we'd never been to a championship game. And then the crowd that we had there, it was completely sold out. and and it was really a great experience for me. That's I had two great experiences, and one was playing there at the championship game, and the other one when I was in college. And we played we went and played in Kansas City for the NAIA team. And we went into this big stadium there, and I think it was a sellout for that game because the team that we were playing at that time they had a guy by the name of Beeble Francis that was averaging 60 points a game, and I guess a lot of people wanted to go see him, and when we walked out in the court and looked all around, I mean that was, to me, I got kind of nervous. Never been in a court like that where you had that many people.
Yeah.
You were talking about maybe 25,000 people.
Wow.
We had it there at the University of Arizona, and I don't know how many people held that, but I'm sure had to be at least, I don't know what they had there, 6,000 people maybe.
How big
Well,
was
at the high school, our high school, I think the most they ever hold there was maybe, 500, I think. I can't even remember what it held. They had a balcony.
Yeah, you were excited.
Yeah, we're excited. We were there in the finals.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. They were a great team. They had played Nogales and some of the other teams. They played some of the big schools that they had beaten too.
And you knew about this?
We knew about that.
Yeah. How had you heard about it?
In the papers.
Yeah,
the national high scoring.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people remember us about scoring 100 points. We had, I don't know how many 100 points games that season. And I think we had I think we beat Globe twice over 100. We beat Morenci over 100. We beat Clifton, I think, over 100. And we beat one other team, I forget what it was, that we beat over 100. We had about 5 or 6 of them. But we averaged, I think, 94 points per game.
In that season?
In that season, yes.
94 points per game?
Yeah, I think that's about what we averaged. It was because there's not very many teams scored that many points in one game.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Hello, gentlemen.
Even experience off the court was real great because people always, when they all used to see you, they'd come up and greet you and tell you, okay, even today, I go around the state sometimes and people will tell me, I can remember you when you were playing in high school. Yeah, I've run into people from other communities and said, yeah, I remember I was watching you playing when you were in high school. He said, you guys had a great team.
And they remember the championship.
And they remember all that. They never have forgotten.
Now, even though you preoccupy you at all?
No, I didn't bother me. I was used to it. I worked in a grocery store where I met a lot of people, white, black, or whatever. And I got used to all that. It didn't bother me much. Well, because of going to the theater and even some of the restaurants. I mean, going to the theater?
Yeah.
We got used to about going to the theater because at that time it used to cost us maybe 5-10 cents to go to the theater, and we got used to going upstairs. At that time we were kids. Who could? Well, we didn't have nothing to complain about. What were we going to complain? In those days, you didn't have nobody to go to. No, well, I lived right maybe 200 steps from my house to the theater.
Brothers, sisters?
No, once they opened the Mexican theater, and that's when my mom used to go to the Mexican movies. But that's all she never went to the theater. Well, the experience with the YMCA, I didn't have much experience because I never did go down there. In fact, I never even went swimming. Mm-hmm. Experience I had with the YMCA was when they had the Mexican. That's where I used to go. Play around there. They had pool and they had checkers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Games.
Well, why did you have to go to the Mexican YMCA?
That's the only place we could go. We couldn't get a membership at the YMCA because we could not. We were not allowed to go into the YMCA and we couldn't buy a membership. Well, it started out. It was close all the way from the start to the beginning, and we were nip and tuck from the start to the end, and we just kept on going until we finally got the lead, and there at the end. No, it was. I think the score was 50-56, if I can remember. We had two tough teams there. Carver was a tough team. They had the height, they had the speed. They were in the same boat as we were in. We didn't have the height that they had, but I think we matched up pretty good with them. What do you mean by the skills that
Yeah,
you're?
I mean, what were the strengths? Where
The strength that we had, shooting and fast break.
and
Yes,
staying
it started out real close. In fact, it started from the beginning to the end. It was close the way whole through.
You remember?
I couldn't even remember that. You're talking about what, 60 years ago?
Yeah, yeah.
I can't even remember my name now.
As the game was
No,
progressing.
I think throughout the whole game, the difference was about 1 or 2 points, one way or the other.
So very close game.
It was a very close game. In fact, I think Carver was leading at the half. I didn't have much of an impression, to tell you the truth. I was out there warming up, trying to get myself warmed up, but every game I played, I had the impression we could beat them. That's something that's hard to remember, but I know that whenever we went out, he'd tell us, you got to play hard, you got to move, and I want you to pass the ball, I want you to dribble, and we're going to fast break. I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it's been a long time ago.
It's been a long time ago, but he always taught us that we had to play defense. Yeah, and well, it's so funny that most of the players I ever played were always taller than I was. I was only 5 foot 10 inches, and I learned from that when I played college ball, I was playing against 6'8", 6'9". And that's where I learned a lot from Cavisto. He always taught us how to block out. He said, no matter how tall the kid is, you can always block him out. If he wants the ball, he's going to have to reach over you, whether you're 5'6" or 5'7" or 7 foot. One of them went to play for the U of A. That was Hetty Red. Red. He was the center. You know what the funny thing about it is when I got picked to play in the All-Star game, he was my roommate.
Oh,
High school All-Star game.
okay. Where did you play that game?
Up in Flagstaff, NAU.
What was?
Scoring the baskets. God, I can remember. I know that all of us were close. Me and Lupe and Eli were real close. I think Eli came out at 14, and I think I had 12, and Lupe, I think, had 11 or something in there. When we got down to the last second. Because it was nip and tuck all the way through, from the beginning to the end. Oh, I can remember that. Oh, the crowd was loud. It was loud. Oh yeah, we had. I don't think there was a person that was that stayed in Miami. I think that the town was a ghost that night. We had a big crowd from Miami.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was more than that, I think. Oh, they. I think that's something that nobody will ever forget. Even today. I go to I live in Mesa now. I run into people down there, and they talk. The first thing they talk to me, well, I remember you guys when you played in '51. So we were pretty well known throughout the whole state. Even today, there's old people that lived. One of the greatest things about this community, we had the old people that attended a lot of our games. They used to play in high school when they were in our age. They were what I am today. They were that old at that time. They used to, all of them, the old people used to attend the games. One thing about my mom, Only attended one of my games. Only one game.
Which game was that?
I think it was in Globe when we played the. I think it was playing the Eastern Conference tournament.
Gee,
You know, she never talked about it. Well, she saw us at one game. In fact, she knew most of the players that played. I don't know whether it is or not. Because I never had much of the family. My brothers were all gone, and I think I only had one brother who used to attend the games, and then my sisters.
they would go to the game.
Yeah, they would. Well, they were in high school too. It was great because we were pretty well known, you know, and it helped us a lot in life.
In what way?
Well, if you're out looking for a job and you wouldn't ask them where you're from, and the first thing they'd come out, well, you were with a great team, weren't you? I said, yes. It helped me a lot in life.
And would they know
Even in playing in college ball, it was the same way.
educational goals?
Oh, it helped me a lot. I would have never gotten an education if it wasn't for the scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
Because we couldn't afford it. My mom was by herself. Where was I going to get the money? When I got out of college, I got drafted. I had to go to the service. I put 2 years in the service, and I played basketball in the service. I played for the 7th Division. We ended up winning the Korean tournament, and we ended up beating Camp Zama for the Far East to represent the Far East in the All Army tournament in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. That's when I found out about segregation. It was so funny that I came back and I found there was an opening in the office. So I went and applied for it. And the first thing I did, I walked in there and I knew the guy that was a hiring agent. And I told him I came to apply for a job. And he said, what job are you applying for? The one in the office. He said, well, why don't you go to Phoenix and apply for a job over there? There's more opportunities over there. I said, if I wanted to apply for a job in Phoenix, I said, apply for a job here, why would I want to go to Phoenix? My mom's here. I want to stay here with her and support her. So he went and gave me an application. I waited 2-3 weeks, didn't get no results. So finally, Lee Larson that played ball with us, he was in the team. I went to see his dad. He was a union representative for the steel workers. He represented I don't know how many states, and he always used to meet with the big boys from the mine. So I went and talked to him and see about talking to him about getting me a job. So he went. He said, "I'll see what I can do." A week later, he called me and said, "Well, I'll be truthful with you." He said, "You're not going to get a job in the office." I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, they got a policy that they don't allow any Mexicans in the office." And I said, "Well, how come somebody never told me anything about that?" But today, that's the best thing they ever did for me. They gave me a job because I'm better off now. If I would have gotten a job at the mine, I'd probably still be working there. I ended up getting a job at the lumberyard, and I ended up buying it when I got. What happened was that I went there as a bookkeeper, and the old man that owned it died of a heart attack all of a sudden, and so the old lady never worked there before. So he asked me if I would run it. I said, yeah, I'd run it. So we drew up a contract. And I made sure that the contract had in there that if she ever wanted to sell it, I would have the first crack at it. So, and that's the way it stood out, that I ran it until she was ready to sell it, and I bought it. And I had it for about 11 years. Yeah, I ran for supervisor and ran five terms and won all 5 terms. That was the best thing ever happened to us when the mines. And you know what? The funniest thing about it is that the board used to meet with the mines once in a while. And so when I first got in office, we had a meeting with him, and first thing I told him, I said, I'll tell you one thing. I said, uh, I'm now in the board. I don't mind working with the mines, I said, but I don't like the way you guys treated me. And the guy said, well, what happened? We said, well, I applied for a job and you don't allow any Mexicans in the office. Oh, no. I said, no, that happened to me. I said, but I'll tell you what, I said, I can work together with you guys. If there's something that I think is going to benefit the community, I will help you. But if it's not going to help the community, you don't have my vote. And that's the way I stood right up from the beginning. I told them that right off the beginning. What was it? What, media?
Your immediate reaction. I mean, your first
When
thought,
I
your
learned
first
about that?
reaction.
Yeah. Well, I learned that because in the service, and at that time the high school was together. You know, they weren't separated, and I didn't feel that discrimination was really that bad until that happened. And then being in 1957, you would think that they'd got over it. But then the good thing about it is that 5 years later, I think it was 5 or 6 years later, they passed that law where they couldn't do that. Because even the Mexican people couldn't get any jobs as electrician or carpenters or skill jobs. They couldn't get them in those days. But then when they got sued, that took care of it.
Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, right.
1964. Yeah.
They didn't have that.
Right.
No, I didn't.
Your feelings get hurt. I mean,
I didn't get angry about it. Doesn't do any good.
at that
No,
moment.
the only response I had was, why didn't somebody tell me about this? I would have never gone down there.
You wouldn't waste.
But that was the best thing that ever happened to me anyway. Because their benefits, I mean, you got people right now. I know of my own friends that worked in the mines for 35, 40 years. You know what they're getting for pension? $700. Can you live on $700? No, you can't. That's why I said I'd still be working.
You'd still be working there at the mines.
Right.